Welcome. I am your host, Catherine Ottmers, the Technical Planner for the Carbon Ranch Initiative at Quivira Coalition. This self-guided journaling experience introduces the Transitioning Land to a New Generation curriculum. It is the first of 5 consecutive modules designed to help participants gain the basic skills needed to participate in a ranch, farm, or land transfer process. We found that most training about ranch farm transfer covers succession and/or estate planning within ranch farm families and mostly from the point of view of the senior generation. Since land transfers increasingly occur between non-relatives, we've tried to make our training as inclusive as possible for those of you who come from ranch farm families and for those who don't, for younger producers and/or beginners as well as for landholders looking for someone to take on management of their land, their operation, or both. It is designed especially for people who have land and/or farm or ranch business in mind and have at least started to talk with someone about transferring it, from young and beginning ranchers and farmers to landholders who may be retiring or planning their estates or who want to make land available for a new generation. This curriculum was created by American Farmland Trust with support from a national educational team of advisors and a group of subject matter experts. It was made possible by a grant from the USDA Beginner, Farmer, and Ranch Development Program with additional support from Farm Credit and the members of American Farmland Trust. We have created this self-guided journaling experience as a pilot to field test these resources. Your exit ticket is a 2-minute SurveyMonkey evaluation at the end. Please complete it so you can let us know what worked, what didn't work, and what we can do to make it better. We understand that each participant has a unique situation and there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So we focus on providing you with self-assessment skills and reflective time before you develop your next steps, which will include building relationships with other people to help you have needed conversations, make important decisions, and navigating the process. After years of conversations with longtime ranch family and neighbors and my own experience, there is recognition that land transfer is a very private and emotionally charged process. So we are using the American Farmland Trust curriculum to provide you with a self-paced assessment and journaling experience to clarify and engage who you are and where you are at with the land transfer process before next steps. Get your journaling supplies together, set aside some reflective time for this self-paced activity. You're encouraged to connect to the material in whatever way best suits and inspires you, from pen and paper to art journaling supplies. Your journaling may be the inspiration for a vision board collage, a poem, or an art piece. You can certainly work on this individually or with others. The idea is to keep the setting private and intimate to allow for discovery and connection to the land transfer process. Also, if you have a ranch, farm, business plan, or work you've done around your values, vision, mission statement, and goals, have that material handy. You will learn to identify key steps of a transfer process, clarify your values, vision, and goals, name the key people involved in your transfer, assess your needs and assets as well as the needs and assets of other key parties involved, and explore stories of land transfer from ranchers and farmers. These stories describe the importance of strong relationships among key parties to improve the chances of a successful ranch or farm transfer, and are the introduction to the next part of the curriculum. Pause to respond to prompts in your journal and/or for discussion, pace yourself, respond to embedded evaluation questions along the way, reward yourself during the process with some good old-fashioned cut and paste visual collage as you become clear on where you are at and next steps. Transferring land and potentially an entire ranch or farm operation takes time and honest and clear communication, whether within a farm family or between non-relatives. What are you bringing to this process? There are a series of steps in a ranch or farm transfer process. We've broken it down into 10 steps. You likely will take most, if not all of them, but it is not a linear process. So while a certain amount of order makes sense, you will likely find you move forward and back several times before you are done. So take a moment and assess yourself. Where are you in the transfer process according to these categories? Include any challenges or delays you are facing getting to the next step, and write a short description to start your journal. The kind of transfer you choose and what will be involved in the transfer process depends on your own unique situation. So it is important to be clear from the outset about what kinds of assets are involved as well as the types of relationships. Will the transfer just involve raw land? If so, it's going to be a lot simpler than if it also includes a farm or ranch business. Will it include any buildings or equipment? This may make it more complicated than just raw land, but still straightforward. Transferring a ranch or farm business can be complicated. It can happen all at once or over time. It can involve transferring everything to one person or dividing up assets between many, and includes the transfer of knowledge and management. Also, when transferring a ranch or farm business, it will be important to assess whether both parties' goals and needs align with existing facilities. We'll talk about this more in a later Module 3. Depending on whether the transfer is within a family or between non-relatives, the number of people involved and the issues you need to prepare for likely will be different. Timing is important too. When will the transfer begin and end? Will it start happening soon? Or will it take place after you or someone else retires or dies? All in all, the process will have 2 or 3 main parts: the people involved, the land and ranch farm assets involved, and the activities or business on the land. Reflect on these questions of what and who are involved, and what you currently know about your land transfer before we take a deeper dive. And you can record this in your journal. In this section of the self-guided experience, we will begin exploring your values, vision, and goals, and how they relate to the land transfer you are a part of. If you have already done some work in these areas, please have that information handy before we continue. Your values reflect the beliefs which guide your life and actions with friends and family at work or on the farm, on the ranch, and in our communities. Your vision is a statement of where you're headed and what you want to achieve moving forward. If you have or will need to have a business plan, you might translate your vision into a mission statement. But for this training, we're going to focus on the big picture and think of your vision as your hoped-for destination, where you want to be in the future after your farm or ranch transfer process succeeds. Your goals are more concrete steps along the way. You likely will have both personal and business goals for your transfer situation. This is a visualization of different values. It is not a prioritized list, but only an example. The size of the words is random, and the importance of any of them will be different to different people. The key takeaway is that successful relationships are built on values. If your process doesn't uphold your values, it may not succeed. Values are the priorities or principles that guide our behavior, whether in our personal life or business. They're constant, and they're at the heart of who we are, how we show up, how we see the world, and how we measure how well our lives are going. Whether or not you're aware of them, they guide how you approach decisions and relationships. Examples of values are things like being family or community oriented, fairness and equality, dependability and a strong work ethic. For your farm or ranch, they might be something like producing high quality products, meeting the needs of consumers, or protecting the environment. Values are important because they help us live lives of purpose. Sharing values also can help move the ranch or farm transfer process along. But since they are different for each of us, it is important to be able to state clearly what yours are. Take a moment to review your values. You may have prepared a values, vision, mission statement in your ranch farm business plan. Review these and modify if necessary to what seems particularly relevant to your land transfer process as you move forward. Capture these reflections in your journal. Your vision describes where you want to be in the future, usually at least 5 years forward, but even as much as 20 or more. It's good to know where you want to be in the future so you can make a plan to get there. It's important to ground your vision in your values. What values do you hold that you won't compromise? What characteristics of your values and your future ranch or farm operation do you want to portray? What principles do you stand for? Ultimately, what do you want in life? Here's a slightly edited version of a vision statement of a diversified farm in the Midwest as an example. To explore these concepts more, I'm going to ask you to draft a vision statement of your own. This can inform a mission statement for your operation, which you will need for a business plan. But it also should inform the way you approach the transfer process. State this in your journal. Now that you've clarified your current values and your vision of where you want to go, it's time to think about what you need to get there. Your goals should be specific guideposts to help you achieve your vision based on your values. When you think of where you want to live, do you want to live in a rural community or to be near cultural amenities like movie theaters, museums, or fairs? How far do you want to be from schools, shopping, hospitals, and related services? How much do you want to work? Do you need an off-farm job? How will you balance the demands of life and work? Is it important to you to be close to family and or friends? Are you part of a farm family already, or do you have family members you want to bring onto your ranch or farm, or leave your ranch or farm too? Are you just starting out and planning a family? Would you want them to be involved in the business? What kind of income do you need? Do you need funds for retirement? Do you have medical bills or loans to pay off? Do you have Medicare, or are you paying out of pocket for health insurance? Are you saving for college, retirement, vacations, a new car? There is more to delve into on your financial position in a later module, but it's good to think about your income goals as you start the goal-setting process. Take a moment to reflect and record your answers to these questions in your journal. This list offers suggestions of some business goals and ideas. What do you want your farm or ranch business to look like? We've already touched on this as part of both your current situation and your vision of the future, but it is important to be specific about the kind of operation you want to have. These are some key questions to answer. In a farm transfer situation, it also is important to learn about the needs of the other party in the transfer. Usually the goals of an incoming producer are different from those of the exiting landowner, so be sure to have an open dialogue and try to find common ground. Take a moment to reflect on where you are with these questions and add these insights to your journal. Setting useful goals can be difficult. They should be simple yet specific enough to clearly define what you want to accomplish. They should cover the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why, as well as how. Many people use the SMART goals framework to set useful and actionable goals. SMART goals are specific, well-defined and clear; measurable, because when you measure results, you know whether or not you have achieved your goal; attainable and realistic enough that you can achieve them with time and effort; results focused, meaning they include the resources, knowledge, and time you need to reach your goals; timely or time-bound, meaning linked to a realistic time frame. A goal without a timeline is just a dream. Let's work through an example. A broad goal might be to inherit my grandfather's vegetable operation. That's a worthy goal to start, but it doesn't answer the deeper SMART questions. To make it more specific, you might refine the goal to be to inherit my grandfather's operation and produce a seasonally diverse mix of fruits and vegetables to sell at farmers markets and to local schools. To make that measurable, you might add earn an annual gross income of $150,000, increase crop yields 5% by improving nutrient management, and increase sales by $25,000 by adding 2 farmers markets and a local school to the marketing portfolio. Then check to make sure these are all attainable. Even if it's a stretch, could you accomplish these things in 2 years? What resources do you need? Do you have them? Or what else do you need to get the help that you need? Finally, make sure you have a realistic time frame. For example, to increase crop yields by 5% next year by improving nutrient management and pest control, or to increase sales by $10,000 by reaching out to at least 25 new sales prospects in the coming 6 months. This process takes some time, and the results are so worthwhile. Develop 1 to 3 SMART goals around your land transfer process. Use your journal as a workbook, scratch pad, and yes, the final, succinct, and satisfying write-up of your SMART goals. Now that you've clarified your current situation and where you want to go, it's time to think about what you need to get there. Who else is involved? And what do they need to get out of the transfer process? To assess your needs and the needs of the other parties involved in your transfer situation, it's important to understand assets. Assets are things that have value, both tangible or physical things like land or a bank account, and intangible or non-physical things like strong family ties or social networks. In farm transfer situations, people tend to think of assets as resources with financial value, which can be reported on a balance sheet. We'll talk about these kinds of assets more in a later module. They include things like cash and savings, land and buildings, crops and livestock, equipment and inventories, and intangible property, such as an established brand or a client's list. In thinking about the value of a farm ranch property to you, other assets are equally important but may or may not have economic value, like quality soils and access to clean and plentiful water. Knowledge, skills, and abilities are important assets too. Even and especially if you're in or entering into a transfer situation that includes any part of a farm or ranch business. Things like ranching experience, farming experience, and business management are very important assets. Assets also include things like legal knowledge or strong communication skills. They also include your relationship to your community, having strong social or business networks, access to information and capital resources. Even things like belonging to farm associations and other professional organizations. Finally, assets include the different kinds of things that give a person the power to influence other people and affect the use and distribution of resources. These include comfort with cultural norms, holding positions of power or influence within a family, organization, institution, or society. Now let's turn to your ranch farm transfer opportunity. What do you need to get out of it to achieve your goals? For example, if you are the incoming producer, do you only need raw land, or do you need farm or ranch infrastructure like buildings, fencing, irrigation systems as well? Or are you the landowner and what you really need is retirement income and to leave a legacy for your heirs? If you are negotiating with a non-relative, you may need to develop or maintain relationships and/or community networks. One way to assess what you need is to think about the gaps between your current situation and your goals. You already started filling out your journal, and we'll spend more time working on this. For now, think about how the farm transfer could address these gaps. For example, could the transfer improve your housing situation? Could it provide employment and sufficient income for you and other family members? In addition, how could the transfer advance your business goals? Consider what resources the other party has that you currently use or could use. This might include the ranch or farm business or intangible assets like expertise, business contacts, or a clients list. It might include management experience. These are the things you will negotiate for during the transfer. This needs assessment dials in the checklist of your most desired attributes of your land transfer process. Journal your answers. Let's start with your financial assets now. Do you have or need cash or savings, or the ability to acquire capital? Do you have or need agricultural land, equipment, or other assets like crops or livestock? What about a ranch or farm business? Take a moment to just look at financial asset categories for what you need, and then journal your thoughts. Now let's think beyond financial assets. What other assets do you bring to the table or need to acquire? For example, do you have or need hands-on farming or ranching experience? Do you have or need production, marketing, or management skills? What about legal knowledge or business expertise or communication skills or community relationship? What do you bring to the table and what do you need to acquire? Journal your answers to these asset needs for your land transfer process. Now you've thought about your needs and assets. Let's think about the other people who have an interest or stake in your ranch farm transfer situation. If you are an incoming producer, it is most important to think about the person who owns the land and holds other assets that you want to acquire. If you are the landowner or asset holder, think about the incoming producer and what they need. Either way, also consider who else could be affected by your transfer situation, like family members, any employees you may have. And depending upon where you are and the type of farm or ranch operation, other people who might have a stake, like neighbors or community members. For example, if the owner is an institution like a land trust or municipality, members of the community may have an interest in the outcome of the transfer. Before moving forward, step back and consider the transfer from the point of view of the others involved. What do you know about their current situation, values, vision, and goals? What do they need to get out of the situation? Thinking about their needs from the outset sets the stage for more effective communication and negotiation down the road. We will be talking more about this in Module 4, where we focus on telling your story and some advanced communication. To get to a win-win outcome takes understanding of your own position and the position of the other party so you can find a mutually acceptable agreement, which gives you both as much of what you need as possible. Win-win means you both walk away happy and your needs are met. So it is important to consider what the other party needs and to figure out where there is room for negotiation and compromise. A key issue to consider during the farm transfer process is who controls what assets. Essentially, how much power do the various parties have to make decisions and move things forward? Who owns or controls the land involved in the transfer? Who else has a share or interest in the property or operation, and what is their role, their stake, their power to affect the outcome? Underlying these obvious power dynamics are subtler ones related to identity. Let's refer to your journal so far. Do social or institutional factors like age, family position, race, ethnicity, gender, education, religion, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status affect your situation? Chances are they do. Think about what assets you have which might balance out these dynamics. This curriculum includes a powerful module on the importance of telling your story, communication, and relationship building in a future module. But this is complicated, and it's good for you to take the time to frame this in your own voice. Journal your reflections here in private. This is a good reminder that land transfer is a private and emotionally charged process. Relationships, crucial conversations, and important decision-making are all critical pieces in a process that relies on synchronicity and surrender, as described by Dr. Melissa Bird, one of the curriculum developers of the module on telling your story. This is an image from the Rainey Ranch Facebook page from my friend Nancy Rainey when they transferred their family-held ranch. Nancy's land transfer process has been well documented, and I was fortunate to have a conversation with her several years after the transfer was complete about how she sees things now. she provided some great insight, including, at any scale, the owner might wish to consider placing a conservation easement on the property. There are tax benefits, and you know that your land is preserved in perpetuity. She said that was best to do in advance of the sale. She also shared that the family was looking for avenues that would assist younger generation in purchasing, leasing to own, or leasing the land. And Nancy had worked with the Iroquois Valley Farmland, REIT, which is a real estate investment trust, in hopes of making it possible for a group of young ranchers to lease invest in the ranch or portions of it. The Iroquois Valley finances farmer-friendly leases and mortgages mostly were working in the East and Midwest, but they were interested in working in the West. And since the time of her ranch's land transfer, there are now more land links and farm links in a number of Western states to provide connections between sellers and potential young operators. Nancy also shared that the decision to handle the sale without a realtor was important to her because it gave her time and latitude to find a buyer who was interested in carrying on with their management practices and was committed to the health of the land. These relationships are very, very important. Of course, there's downsides to handling the sale yourself, and it took an enormous amount of work to pull together all of the historic road easements, agreements with neighbors, water and mineral rights, well information, state land lease history, previous purchase agreements, contracts with NRCS, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Partners for Fish and Wildlife, family operating agreements, partnership documents, warranty deeds, oil and gas history, property taxes, ranch loans, and they had a lawyer assisting them. And I read that whole list because it's complicated. The advantages to acting as your own realtor, and I agree with Nancy because we also acted as our own realtor. You set your own time frame. You get to get information about the sale out to the parties you're interested in. So it's like you're looking for that match. And you're also negotiating the price yourself, and you get an opportunity. This goes back to the importance of these relationships and telling your story. You get the opportunity to know the potential buyers well and to create a healthy and long-lasting relationship that will assist in a productive transfer of the property. Nancy reports that now she's in regular contact with the new owners and just always grateful to see their continued commitment to and appreciation for the land. And, having that relationship is important to us because we can go back onto that land that we've known so well. The last thing that Nancy had shared with me, and much of this is in her words after a conversation in an email, is that she recognizes that there's a continuing and increasing challenge of bringing young people onto the land when land prices are out of reach. And that was a real pain point for their family and for her. Even for sellers committed to the idea of social equity and land transfer, the reality that many operations are owned by an extended family with multiple interests and needs, or even extended partnerships, makes it difficult to offer a sale to younger folk at lesser than market value. And I think she stated that really well. There's a great hope that there's emerging processes and resources and innovative strategies coming to the forefront to be able to make a bigger, better way forward with this particular sticky problem. And it's just so critical. And it's I appreciate you listening to all of this this story, because this is just one place with one family with one story. And I brought it up because it was something I know about personally, but what we have here on this next slide, and I think this is just a really important thing that Nancy and I came up with to offer here, is this is a curated list of links to other land transfer stories and information. And I want you to pick 3 of these to review. And I also want you to consider having a conversation with a neighbor, a fellow farmer, a retired rancher about their land transfer process. And record in your journal which resources you explored and stories you listened to and what you learned. You now have a journal of your values, vision, SMART goal for your land transfer, a needs assessment for both sides of the equation, some basic financial needs, income goals, and you have reviewed some great land transfer stories from other ranchers and farmers and learned something from those. Good job. This self-guided journaling experience let you reflect on what you are bringing to the land transfer process. To take the next steps, keep an eye out for upcoming modules of transferring land to the next generation from Quivira Coalition and/or our partners. As a reminder, here are 10 key actions in farm or ranch transfer planning process. Remember, it's not a linear process, and while a certain amount of order makes sense, you'll likely find yourself moving forward and backward several times through the process. You did accomplish several of these steps in this introductory module with this journaling experience, and you were able to do it in a private way and, being able to put it down yourself in your own words and kind of see what you're bringing to the process. Don't forget, this is your exit ticket. It's just to take this 2-minute SurveyMonkey evaluation. This self-paced journaling experience is an innovative introduction to the land transfer process. It was developed out of conversations about the privacy and emotionally charged nature of land transfer. And we just want to know if this worked for you. Thank you for your feedback, which will help us guide future programming and technical offerings in this critical area.